Today, I'm gonna piggyback off of what Bob talked about last week, right? Because, right, Bob talked about how our tongue is one of the one thing that the human race cannot tame. We can make lions jump through hoops. We can make elephants stand on one foot. We cannot tame the tongue. It's the one piece of your body that you cannot exhaust. It's the one muscle in your body that you cannot exhaust. They've tried, can't do it. Right? I am too, don't worry about it. I'm a sanguine penguin. I like to talk, and my wife has to sometimes put her hand on me and be like, shut up. It happens. But before, so James tells us that, but before James told us the power that was behind the tongue, he gave us a really cool application on how to become better at controlling what we say. And typically, it's a really bad idea to give you guys the big idea before we get to the big idea of the message, but I'm going to start off by giving you the big idea of the message, okay? And I need you all to repeat this after me. And once I say this, once you repeat it after me, you're going to know exactly where we're going. So repeat this after me. Ready? New day. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Okay, so now here's a few hand motions because we all like things that help our minds remember what we need to say. When you say, like the kids, right, we got to help them remember, right? So when you say quick to listen, I want you to open your hands. Quick to listen, quick to listen, slow to speak. Quick to listen, slow to speak. You guys look amazing. I love it, right? Now, I know that's a little out there. I know that's kind of crazy, John. Like, really, that? Yes. Yeah. But here's what I know. There's a lot of studies, and there's a lot of science that says that when you are in conflict, your body will naturally start to close its hands into fists. And this is a problem, because when your hands start to do this, it's a sign that your mind is doing the exact same thing. Your mind starts to shut down and close shop. And if your mind is closing shop, guess what you aren't doing? Listening. It's like a turtle when it goes into its shell. Right? Now, the reason that this happens during conflict is that you and the person that you are in conflict with want the exact same thing. What? Yes. You guys want the exact same thing. Both parties that are in conflict want the same thing. You know what that is? You want to be heard, and more than that, you want to be understood. You want the person you're in conflict with to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And at the exact same time, they want you to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And that's because you want to be heard and understand. And that's because they want you to hear them and understand them. It's almost like we're saying to each other, we may not agree, but I want you to listen to me. We may never agree on how to parent, on what degree I should go for, on what I should or shouldn't take in college, what job I should or shouldn't take, what person I should or shouldn't date. But at the very least, come on, listen to me. And if you have something to say something that lets me know that you heard me. After all, I can't really hear you until I feel that you've heard me. And you can't really hear me until you feel that I've heard you, that I feel that you've heard me. You see, there's a conflict there. There's a thing that happens. Now, obviously, I didn't come up with that. That advice came 2,000 years before I was even a twinkle in anybody's eyes except for God's. Okay? In fact, this comes straight from the mouth of James, the brother of Jesus. And it's what we're going to spend the rest of our time looking at today. Now, again, James was the half-brother of Jesus. They had the same mom, different dads. Okay? And James did not believe in Jesus until he saw his resurrected brother. I'm in, right? And James at this time when he wrote this letter was probably the leader of the church in Jerusalem. So James, who didn't believe his brother was the Messiah, believed his brother was Messiah, is now leading the church that's in direct opposition, kind of, to the Jewish traditions in Jerusalem. And he had this amazing nickname. His nickname was Just. Just, yeah. He was known as James the Just. And James would eventually be stoned to death by the leaders of the Jewish temples because of what he believed and who he believed his brother was. And in this letter that James wrote to Jewish believers scattered abroad, he talked about how important it is for us relationally to learn to listen and to learn to speak at the right time. He never said don't speak. That's a different song by a different group, right? Don't speak. Right? That's old, okay? It's not what he's telling us to do. James tells us something completely different, and here it is. James 1, we're starting in verse 19. My brothers and sisters, take note of this. In other words, pay attention. Listen up. I'm about to give you guys something you really need. Everyone. This word literally translates to everyone. Both individually and collectively. Everyone. So this is for you, but it's also for us. Does that make sense? Everyone should be quick to listen. Which doesn't make any sense whatever. How do you listen quickly? How do you listen quickly? I mean, you hear, but how do you hear faster? Like the reason he uses these two words that really don't fit together is because he's trying to make a very important point. And that's what great communicators do. James is trying to tell you, he's trying to tell me that your number one priority, the first thing that you need to do, the most important thing relationally that you can do is to be quick to listen. Listen quickly. Make it first. Before you do or say anything else, listen. Right? And let's be honest. When you're in conflict, this is exactly what you want the other person to do for you. John, I didn't want to listen to somebody preach at me this morning. So James is saying that this is just one more of those things that his brother Jesus told us to do. Right? Because Jesus came and said what? To love as I have loved, right? So he's saying, like, this is something that you have to do unto others as your heavenly Father did through Christ for you. Do unto others as you would want them to do to you. So you want them to listen to you quickly, so maybe you should start. Right? You want others to listen to you. Yeah, of course I do. You want others to understand you. Of course I do. Then be quick to listen. But also, be slow to speak. Slow to speak. Literally, the idea here that he's giving us is that you are to be late to speak. How are you late to speak? Or in other words, when it comes to your words, wait and be late. Wait and be late. I like giving you guys things that you can keep and feed on and remember, right? And you have to say something. You can't just sit there like you got to say something, right? And I would tell you this, if you had to say something, be curious. Be curious. Ask a question. If you can't think of a question, maybe try rephrasing what they just said to you and see if you got it right. Right? And I know what you're thinking. If I ask a question, they're just going to go down another rabbit trail and keep talking. Right? then I would tell you this. Ask 3 questions. Give them plenty of rabbit trails to go down and ramps to take to different topics, because it's your responsibility to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And the longer that they speak, the quicker you are to listen. And here's the thing, the quicker you are to listen, the more you learn. And now, if you are a parent, or if you've ever been somebody's kid, how much would you give, or how much would you have given for your kids or for your parents to be this curious and to just ask questions? When you sat there and went on and on and on about something that was important to you. In fact, if you are here today and you have a son or a daughter and you're that parent that likes to go on and on and on, next time, kids, next time that your parent is going on and on and on, try to slide this in there. Slide this in there. I'm giving you guys, take notes, Abby. I know your parents, take notes, okay? Slide this in there. You know, Mom, you know, Dad, I really don't see it that way, but I would love to. Can you say that a different way so that I might better understand? That's what you did. You just did a mic drop and lights out. Your parents are just going to kill over. They're done. You won't have to have any more conversation because they're going to have to try to process what just happened. Right? Why? Why? Well, because all we do is argue, argue, argue. And if you can learn to hit the pause button, and then you can learn to be curious, or you can learn to ask questions, when you are quick to listen, and slow to speak, all of a sudden, there's a greater understanding, there's greater empathy in understanding what the other person's trying to say. It may be like me. Your worst parenting moments happen when you were quick to speak instead of quick to listen. Yesterday, I was quick to speak, and I wasn't listening at all because I didn't want to do with it. I was done. Yesterday, as I was preparing this message to talk to you guys about today, right? And this makes sense if you have any kind of authority, like as a parent or a boss, because here's the thing, you have the wisdom bucket. I'm older than you. Listen to me. You have the experience bucket. You have the age bucket. You have the insight bucket. And they don't even have the frontal lobe development to understand yet. So you're like, stop talking now, and I'm going to pour all of my years of wisdom and experience into you all at once. And you're going to sit there and you're going to listen. And then we sit back and we wonder why our kids don't want to talk to us. We sit there and we wonder why our kids don't want to hang out with us. Stop talking. Because you know what you've done? You know what you've done in this moment? We have righted the person you love most right out the door. You have righted the person you love the most right out the door. And you can right them. And you can right them right out of the relationship. You can be right, and you can be right, and you can be right, and you can rewrite. And you will eventually just right them right out of the relationship you have with them. Because just like you, they want to be understood, not lectured. And they, and you are you guys willing to be open to the other's ideas? If there's a small chance that they or you will even partially understand what is trying to be communicated, are you willing to be quick to listen? So you know this is important because you've been on both sides of this equation. You've been in that conversation with your kids, with somebody, your coworker, whatever, when you see that glaze come over their eyes. And and they've checked out. God never called us to be right. He called us to be effective. And we walk away from the conversation like, I don't understand. I know I'm right. I know I'm giving them good advice. I know I'm giving them good counsel, wise counsel. Why is it that we just can't communicate? And James would say, because you aren't quick to listen. You're quick to speak. You got to flip it. You got it backwards. James would also tell us that if you get this right, what comes next becomes really easy. What's he say next? Slow to get angry. Right? Slow to get angry is both the result of and a decision if you are quick to listen and slow to speak. You are less likely to become angry. And it's easier to guard yourself from becoming angry if you have decided to become curious and ask questions. Now we all express anger in our own ways, right? Some of us explode. Booze! Roof's got to be replaced. New roof. I get a new roof every year, right? Some of us go inward and skulk around. These are the people walking around waiting for someone to ask them, hey, what's wrong? So they go, nothing. Nothing's wrong with me. What are you talking about? Like that, you know what I'm talking about. Come on. You know what I'm talking about, right? And that's how that's how those kind of people get in control. Nothing is wrong. We all go on one way or the other. Now, anger in the context of what James is talking about here is more like drawing hasty, misinformed, relationally destructive conclusions. Or jumping to hasty, misinformed, relationally destructive conclusions. So James' formula for conflict is this. This is what James is teaching us right here. The longer you listen, the more you will learn, and the less angry you will become. The longer you listen, the more you learn, and the less angry you will become. Who could use a little less anger in their life? Who could use a little less anger in their house? All right, I don't know how some of y'all do it when you got more than 4. I got 4 kids. It drives me crazy. Some of y'all, God bless you. Now here's why this works, right? Here's why this works. And this should be common sense, but here's the thing I've learned. Common sense isn't common anymore, okay? And I like to remind everybody once in a while just to make sure that it's still common to all of us. But this is why it doesn't work. Ready? Everything everyone does makes sense to them. Right? Now, I know that probably is like the deepest thing you've ever heard me say. Right? It's pretty deep, y'all, okay? But isn't it true? Isn't it true? Everything that everyone does makes sense to them. And it gets worse than that. It gets worse than that. Ready? Everything everyone says makes sense to them. And maybe even worse than that, everything everyone believes makes sense to them. So when you hear yourself saying stuff like, I don't know why they would do that. I don't know why they would say that. I don't know why they would believe that. Who is the one who really needs the education? Let me give you a hint. I don't know why. I don't know why they would say. I don't know why they would do. I don't know why I don't know why my son would say something like that. Well, who's the one with the problem? Maybe you have some learning to do. No, I don't. No, I don't. I would rather just be critical. Why would anyone want to do or say something like that, or do or believe something like that? News flash, they are all perfectly good reasons for what they do and what they say and what they believe. There's a perfectly good reason for them. They, just like you, have perfectly good reasons for what you do and what you say and what you believe. Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person, says this. Habit number 5 out of the 7 habits of a highly effective person is this. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Where do you think he got that? He's not that smart either. Seek first to understand, which means what? Listening, more listening, asking questions, asking more questions. You get a question, you get a question, you get a question. And then, and only then, when you understand, do you seek to be understood? And here's a suggestion. Don't criticize anything you don't understand. Don't criticize an idea you don't understand. Don't criticize any belief that you don't understand. Don't criticize anyone or anybody that you don't understand. Oh, you want an example? Sure, I could do that. Don't criticize that person who's driving away that you don't. I did that on the way to church this morning, y'all. Right? Why wouldn't I criticize them, John? Because you don't know if they're rushing to the hospital to get their spouse who is dying in the back seat to the hospital. You don't know if they have a kid in the back seat having an allergic reaction to something. You don't understand, so why criticize? Because once you start to understand, then you become a better learner of people, a better understander of ideas. Because if someone holds an idea, has a persuasion or an opinion, remember, it makes sense to them. And if you don't understand it, who are you to criticize? Who are you to judge what you don't understand? And when you're in conflict, you are just listening so that you can reply instead of listening to be understand. That's what we do. We listen to reply. We hear what you're saying, now I'm going to fix you because you're wrong. Instead of listening to understand so that you can be a better person and give them the empathy and understanding that they need, that they're looking for. Yes, I am too. And if you don't learn anything, it makes it hard to make whatever relationship any better. Because all we have is the frame of references that we have. A filter in which we see the world. And everything everyone else says, everything that you say to me, I filter through my filter. Where I come from. What my childhood was like. How old I am. Did both my parents live in my house? Did they get a divorce? Everything you say to me gets filtered through my filter. And you don't understand my filter because you don't know me. And the chances are that you are not going to understand someone you are in conflict with correctly because they are talking and speaking and looking through different filters. It's funny that we use the word filters because in February I gave you 2 different filters. Pink and blue. Love and respect. That's just 2 filters that people look through. And it would be foolish to judge and criticize anyone who we don't understand. And that, as we have said, requires you to listen and ask more questions than it does you talking. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Right? And if I stopped right there, that'd be a pretty good message, right? Right? James isn't done, so neither am I, sorry. Right? So James would be like, this is so much bigger than you guys getting along. This isn't a self-help class. He would say that there's a divine agenda attached to this. And this is how James says it. Verse 20. Because, and we all think we know why. We think it's because if I'm calmer, then I will be more convincing. This is a ploy to get people to see things my way. I got it, James. I understand. And James would be like, oh, my brother. God, Jesus, brother. Okay, never mind. Right? You guys got it? Okay. Oh, my brother. No. Let me explain it to you why. Why? Because human anger is simply when you don't get your way. That's what human anger is. When I used to see a doctor for my PTSD, I would always just say, I'm so frustrated. And he would say, no. You're angry. No. Doctor, you're not understanding me. I'm frustrated. And he would ask me this amazing question. What's the difference? And I would respond in a very John-like manner, because it sounds better. It sounds better if I'm just frustrated. It doesn't sound so good if I'm angry. Whether it is you blowing things up or going inside, however you get angry, Paul's saying, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. What? Yeah, you see, there's 3 agendas in every conflict that you're in. 3? Yeah. There's your agenda, the other person's agenda, and then there's his agenda. And as long as you're trying to convince the other person that you're right, that's your agenda. That's your rightness. And anger produces the rightness or the righteousness that I desire. And you do know, and do you know that my rightness is my rightness simply because I know I'm right, even if I'm not? And I want you to know that I am right. And I want everyone here to know that I am right. And my anger, my frustration, if you want to put it in a nice way, all that stuff produces is my rightness or my self-righteousness. Oh, we just got churched. What? And James would be like, yeah, but that's not the right righteousness. That's not the right. James' big idea here is that when you want to be right, here's his big idea, that we want to be right at each other, and God wants us to be right with each other. And I want to convince you that I'm right, and you throw up your hands, and you say, yep, you're right. But you just do that because you're done with the conflict. But let's be honest, when you win an argument, do you really win anything? It's like, yeah, I won the argument. Hey, but where's your wife? Oh, well, she left. Did you win? I won the argument. Yeah. You won the argument, but you lost the relationship. And James is going, come on, people. That's not what God wants. He doesn't want you to be right at each other. He wants you to be right with each other. And again, this is James drawing us into the one commandment that Jesus gave us, which was what? Come on. Love as I have loved. Love as I have loved. If you do nothing else, love as I have loved. Was Jesus ever quick to speak? When you read the New Testament, you will see that that Jesus didn't come to be right. If Jesus, that would have taken Jesus 30 minutes. If he just showed up and he had to be right, he'd have been like, I am right. Any questions? End of conversation. Right? Like literally in the temple, he said, I am, and it knocked the people backwards. Right? But Jesus didn't come to be right. Right? It wouldn't have ended with him being nailed to a cross if he had just showed up to be right. James would tell us that no, just like my brother Jesus, it's not your goal to be right either. We are to be reconciled to one another as we are to God the Father because of what Jesus did on the cross. To be reconciled simply means to exist, to coexist in harmony. Not just to coexist. We all coexist. But do we coexist in harmony? Do we coexist in a way that shows people who Jesus is in our lives? James is saying, stop being right at each other and start being right with each other. How do we do that, James? I already told you. Were you not listening? Quick to listen. Slow to speak. In other words, if two of you aren't right, it doesn't matter who's right. You don't win a relational argument. You don't win a fight in a marriage. There's no winner if things aren't right between you. Just in case you thought we were done, we're not. James continues. James says this in verse 21. Therefore, now that you know the goal, now that we know the application, therefore, get rid of all moral filth. It's a big do. That's a big ask. This little word here, get rid of, better translates to the action of taking off a jacket or a coat. James is saying that you're walking around with the I'm right jacket on, and I look good. So your whole goal in relationships is to prove that you are okay and cool and that I'm right. And James would tell you that you need to take that thing off. That's self-righteousness or self-rightness. That's got to go. And that's the reason for using such dynamic words like moral filth. Because that catches your attention real quick when you read something like that. Because self-righteousness can quickly become a moral issue. Quickly. If you have gotten yourself to the place where you are self-righteous and you are right, it's okay for you to go do that thing outside your marriage. Whether it's with the real person or whether it's with a person on the internet, it doesn't matter. You are right. And it leads to moral issues that you can't even begin to understand or fathom. And James would also say that you need to take it off. And the evil that is so prevalent. And the word evil better translates to malice. That's a good word. I like that word. I'm going to use that in Scrabble. Malice. Malice is simply defined as a desire to harm, a desire to get even, a desire to pay someone back. That doesn't sound like anything Jesus taught us. And that evil or that malice, James would say, that would summarize your culture. So when it dawns on us that in the middle of an argument with your spouse, with your kids, with your parents, and you realize that you have on that convicted control jacket, that I'm right jacket on again, hit the pause button. It's okay. Take that thing off. Because even if you win, the relationship loses. And James would be like, let me give you an alternative. Take that thing off. And here's what I want you to put on. Here's what I want you to wear as the ecclesia, as the church. And humbly accept the word planted in you. I want you to take the I'm right jacket off that has the big I instead of the S, the big I. And I want you to put on humility. Because humility says, we is more important than me. Humility says, we is more important than me. And you are more important than me. And us reconciling and being right with each other is more important than me getting what I want. James would say that's what I want you to put on in place of the I'm right jacket. That gives us this code word. He gives us this code word to take us right back to being believers in Jesus. When he talks about the word planted in you, James is saying that you are Jesus followers, right? You have the Holy Spirit inside of you, so the word is planted inside of you. Then you already got the context. You know who Jesus is. You know my brother. That God sent his son into the world to die for you. And he put you in front of himself. And now he's asking you to do the same thing for others. So that James would say, how? James, how do we do that? I've already told you. Are you not listening? Quick to listen. Slow to speak. And then he ends with this amazing sentence, this amazing thought. Which can save you. And James isn't talking about save you eternally. That's a whole different process. That's salvation. That's believing and confessing that Jesus is your Lord and Savior. That's the starting line for everything that we do, right? He's not talking about that. He's talking about this can literally save you right now. This can save your marriage. This can save your relationships. This can save your job. This can save your relationship with your son and daughter. This can save you from regretful words. This can save you from having to back off and apologize later. Who likes apologizing? Nobody. But the key word in all of this is the word accept. You have to accept and step back into what you have known from day one as Jesus followers. You have to embrace it. And in doing that makes all the difference in your life. So I'm going to run through all of this one more time, start to finish. And the birthday boy and his friends can come up on the stage. Only because I love you, my brother. And I'm going to read all of this from the beginning, so starting in verse 19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And if you are quick to listen and you're slow to speak, you will become slow to get angry. Why, James? Why should we do this? Because it's more than just about getting along. Because human anger that I have to be right, that I have to prove I am right, that kind of anger does not produce the righteousness or the rightness that God desires. Because God desires that you be right with each other and not right at each other. Right? Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and that evil that's so prevalent in your culture. And humbly accept what you already know to be true, the word that is planted inside of you, which can save you. So this morning the challenge is, can you be quick to listen? When you get into conflict, can you instead of doing this, can you do this? Can you sit in the argument with your hands open? It's not easy. Because everything inside of you is like, no, 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 no. Can you be quick to listen? Can you ask questions? Can you stop and realize it's not about you being right, it's about you being right? So, Father, we thank you. We thank you for the fact that you didn't call us to be right. You called us to be exceptional. You called us to be better than. You've called us to your rightness. Which that means even if I'm right, it's okay that I submit and I back off because we is more important than me. I thank you, Jesus, for your brother James who wrote these words down so that we can understand that it's okay to listen quicker. It's okay to wait and be late with our words. And that when we decide to listen quicker and wait and be late, our anger won't show up because we have understanding. That when we take off that I'm right jacket and cloak ourselves in humility the way that you've called us to be, we can be the light in the dark places. We can have restoration in the relationships. And we can be right again. Even if there's already been sin in the relationship, we can be right again.